I do feel like in April, because I'm feeling it, and I know just from someone being in the market quite frequently, we are going to see less sales in April. But I do feel there's light at the end of the tunnel. That's why I always tell people not to panic. Thanks for watching, guys. You're here because you got our postcard or you're on our socials and you're curious about what's happening in the market. I'm going to give you the long and the short of it here. I'm all over the place, but this is how my brain works. So hang tight, and I'm going to try to break it down to you so you can understand it. A lot of people right now are well informed on the market, okay? They have been looking at Realtor.ca, Zillow, House Sigma. They're getting sold prices. They're seeing what's listed on the market. And the long and the short of it is that buyers and sellers are more informed now more than ever. So that's really important when you are pricing a home or when you're buying a home, because you want to make sure that it's market value. There's market value in any market, okay? And I'm hearing things online that the market's crashing, the market's crashing, the market's crashing, all doom and gloom, and I don't buy it, okay? Not from what we're seeing. There's price points related and longer days on market, okay? But with any price point, there is the best listing price, okay? Which means where you're gonna list your property to get the most action. And I've got news for you, it's not up here, okay? So keep that in mind, guys, when you're selling your house, is that you have to be realistic. If everybody and their brother can see all the sales in their area and you have you want $50,000 more because you've got a stainless steel fridge, it doesn't make sense to people. And if it doesn't make sense to people, you will not get them through the door, okay? There's other things that get them through the door, like listing prep, okay, which is another conversation that I'd love to have with you. But right now, let's just talk about price and the market. So if we are under $1 million right now in the market that we trade in, which is Guelph, Rockwood, Erin, Acton, Fergus, you are noticing, especially for detached, that those properties are selling, okay? If they're priced right, okay? If something's worth $850 and you price it at $950, it's not moving, okay? And not only that, we're not even getting offers on there. So you need to price closer to what you feel the property is worth. We are seeing a bit of a sliding scale over the last few months on where our values are going. So for instance, if this is last November, I'm looking at Georgetown and seeing a 3.3% increase. And now, after 3 months, when I look at the home price index for Georgetown, it's a 1.5% decrease. So we're seeing that market value, and based on the news media, this is kind of what we're seeing. But the market wants to continue on like this. We were licking our chops last year because we thought the rates are going to come down, rate cut, rate cut, rate cut. The only thing that's really stalled us right now are tariffs, and they keep being paused, okay? In my opinion, they keep being paused because both sides don't see the benefit of 25%, 25%, okay? It doesn't make sense for anybody. So they're gonna pick and choose a few sectors, and they're gonna go with it until everybody feels that they've won. But I think it's pretty adamant that we're not gonna get across the board 25%. So let's just take a step back, people, and calm down. The tariffs are having an effect on the market, but it is only speculation because we haven't had enough time for those tariffs to sink in. So I spoke with my mortgage broker yesterday, and she talked about certain areas having bigger impacts based on those tariffs. So if you're in the automotive industry, a place like Guelph, where you have Linamar and Guelph Manufacturing, and those are two industries that are heavily saturated in the car manufacturing sector, you might see some hits and you might see some job loss. As a result, maybe you'll see house prices or people having to sell their houses, okay? But that's yet to be seen, okay? And just because somebody has to sell their house as a result of losing their job doesn't necessarily mean that they have to sell it for a steal. If someone bought their house in 2015 or 2009 and they have to sell it because they lost their jobs, they have got a shitload of equity in that house. And once again, market value is market value is market value in any market. All right, so just keep that in mind. And sorry about my language. I just get passionate about what's going on here. But if the tariffs are the only thing that's affecting the market and interest rates are coming to a point of a 10-year average, I think things are going great, and I think the market wants to start this gradual appreciation like we saw over the last 20 years, okay? The rates will have a few more cuts. We're going to get in the mid threes or higher threes, and it's going to be business as usual. So if you are a buyer and you're sitting on the fence because you feel like you're going to get the steal of your life, a speculative buyer or a buyer waiting for the best opportunity never purchases a house. They never purchase a house. I can remember in 2009 when I started selling real estate. In 2008, the American market crashed and everybody was waiting in 2009 for the Canadian market to follow suit, and it did not. That buyer is still sitting at home on his parents' couch. For buyers out there, you have to realize that when you can buy a house, the best time to buy a house is whenever you can afford it. Right now, if prices are going like this, all right, there's no rhyme or reason. It's just what somebody says in the media that's having a bigger impact, okay? So purchase a house, fix your monthly payment, and go and live your life. There you go. You don't need to time everything just right because people can't do that. And when they wait too long, nothing happens. For sellers as well, we don't know if the prices are going here. We don't know if the prices are going here, okay? I'm not a doom and gloom guy, so I do not feel the prices are going to get too low, but they will go on either side of that sliding scale, okay? And then of course over the 5-year and 10-year term, your houses are always going to increase. I think that's pretty apparent. Okay, now after that rant, I'm finally going to throw some numbers at you guys, so listen up. We cover a few different areas here just to give you insight into what's happening in its entirety. But if you're in an area that doesn't have this on it, give me a call. I can definitely look those numbers up for you. So let's first start off with the home price index. The home price index is a tool that realtors use and government officials use to measure percentage increases and decreases over time. So with the first 3 months this year, we have Guelph coming in an increase of 1.1% from last year. We have Milton, a decrease of 2.3%. Halton Hills, a decrease of 0.4%, now 0.4%. Acton, now this is interesting, is an increase of 1.2%. And it's interesting because Acton is in Halton Hills. So Acton's performing slightly better than the rest of Halton Hills. So if you're in Acton, you listen up. Georgetown, we see a decrease of 1.5%. And then when we look at Rockwood, we see an increase of 2.2%. Now I know it's hard to see that with all the inventory out there, but just pay close attention to the sales, all right? And like I said before, in this market, we have our market value, and we are seeing this up and down depending on what we're seeing with an election and what we're seeing in the news media with the tariffs too. But nothing has really changed so far because it's too soon in the process. It's all speculation at this point. Things will change, okay? I just don't know where they're going to go. But the next 3 months is really going to tell us. So in real estate, everything happens in 3-month intervals. So the next 3 months, when the tariffs set in and the election finishes, I'm really curious to see where we're going to be at. And my guess is we're going to see some stabilization. We're going to see those rates come down even more. So most of our rates will be in the 3s, and the market's going to continue business as usual. I don't think it's going to spike, but I do think we're going to see this gradual increase, okay? And that's coming from the guy that knows what he's talking about most of the time. So let's just throw a couple more stats at you guys so you guys can understand this up and down that I'm talking about. So when I look on the Toronto Real Estate Board and I look at Erin, for instance, we see a 62% increase in active listings from this time last year. But we are seeing, over the first 3 months, we're seeing a 100% increase in sales. Now, 100%, right, depends on how much volume there are. So last year, during that 3-month period in Erin, there were 15 sales. This year, there's been 30. Okay, so that's your 100%. It doesn't seem like a lot when you go 15 to 30, but it's still an increase, so pay close attention. When we look at Guelph, Guelph is an increased inventory of 83%, and over the first 3 months of this year, year to date, we see an increase in sales of 21%. Okay, so we're seeing increase. That's what we want to see. Now, it's not as much of an increase, but at least we have a negative is we have increased inventory. The positive is we're seeing increased sales, okay? But then when I look at, if I look at Guelph Aramasa, for instance, we have a 48% increase in inventory. And over the first 3 months compared to last year, we have a 44% increase in sales. So that's great, but that's over 3 months. When I look at March, okay, March alone in Rockwood, or in Guelph Aramasa, sorry, had a decrease of 20%. So what we're seeing is now we've got tariffs are in March, we've got more election talk in March, so we did see a decrease in the sales. And if I were to hazard a guess, we're gonna see the same trend in April like we saw in March. So, you know, by the end of April, which is coming up, these numbers will be totally different, and they could very well change. You could go from increased inventory to decreased sales, okay? So I will let you know that, and I promise you, I will keep you posted. Take a look at our Instagram. When I go to Halton Hills, we have a 39% increase in inventory with a 26% decrease in sales. And when I go to Milton, we have a 92% increase in inventory with a 20% decrease in sales. So that's pretty tough. All right, those markets are getting a little bit harder, and this seems to be the trend. That's why we need to get the election over with. We need to figure out these tariffs, and then we need business as usual. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. It's clear there's increased inventory no matter where you are, from 39% to 92%. But depending on the area you are, sometimes you're going to see more sales or less sales, okay? I do feel like in April, because I'm feeling it, and I know just from someone being in the market quite frequently, we are going to see less sales in April. But I do feel there's light at the end of the tunnel. That's why I always tell people not to panic, okay? The market always keeps moving, and these external forces keep on pulling us, but let's keep the big picture in mind. Guys, if you have any questions, I want you to give me a call and give me a text today, because I can't wait to have that conversation.